Thank you for joining us in Phoenix Books Burlington to celebrate tonight's guest, UVM professor and celebrated poet, Major Jackson. This newest volume of poetry is complex, a synthesis of classical and modern that has reviewers raving. I'd like to set the stage for tonight with a little bit about his book. Now, can you a little bit better? If I stand like this, is that better? Okay. All right. In his fourth collection, a breakthrough volume, Major Jackson appropriates the vernacular notion of rolling deep to capture the spirit of aesthetic travel that defines these forceful new poems and brazenly announces his steady accretion of literary and artistic influences, both formal and experimental, or his crew. The confident and radiant poems in Roll Deep address a range of topics, most prominently human intimacy and war. And, like his best work to date, these poems create new experiences with language ode to Jackson's willingness to once again seek a rhythmic sound that expresses the unique realities of the 21st century with humor and understanding. Whether set in Nairobi, Madrid, or Greece, the poems are sensuously evocative and unapologetically with it in their effort to build community across borders of language and style. So without further ado, I give you Major Jackson.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you, Phoenix Books, for hosting. Thank you, students, for taking advantage of extra credit. Colleagues/friends. I normally do not like to read in Burlington. Playing before the home crowd is a very difficult act, but I'm happy everyone is here. So many beautiful faces and beloveds, so thank you. I'm going to start off with a poem called Why I Write Poetry. Because my sun is as old as the stars, because I have no blessings, because I hold tangerines like orange tennis balls, because I sit alone and welcome morning across the unshaved jaws of my lawn, because the houses on my street sleep like turtles, because the proper weight of beauty last night was her eyes beneath my eyes, because the red goblet from which I drank water, because the red goblet from which I drank made even water a Faustian toast, because radishes should be banned, little pellets that they are, because someone says it's late and begins to rise from a chair, because a single drop of rain is hope, because life is ordinary unless you plan and set in motion a war, because I have not thanked enough, because my lips moisten whenever I hear Mingus's goodbye pork pie hat, because I plant winter vegetables in July, because I could say the morning died like candle wax and no one would question its truth, because I relish being sent into the coat room in third grade where alone I would turn off the lights and run my hands over my classmates' coats as if playing tag with their bodies. Because once I shoplifted a pair of Hawaiian shorts and was caught at the Gallery Mall. Because soup reminds me of the warmth of my grandmother and old aunts. Because the long coast of my dreams is filled with saxophones and poems. Because somewhere, someone is buying a Rolex or a Piaget, because I wish I could speak 3 different languages, but have to settle for the language of business and commerce, because I used to wear paisley shirts and herringbone sports jackets, because I better get it in my soul. Because my grandfather loved clean syntax, cologne, Stacey Adams shoes, Irish tweed caps, and women, but not necessarily in that order. Because I think the elderly are sexy, and the young are naive and brutish. Because a vision of trees only comes to wise women and men who can fix old watches, because I write with a pen whose supply of ink comes from the sea, because gardens are fun to visit in the evenings when everyone has put away their coats and swords, because I still do not eat corporate French fries, because punctuation is my jury and the moon is my judge, because my best friend in 4th grade chased city buses from corner to corner, because his cousin's father could not stop looking up at the sky after his return from the war, because parataxes is just another way of making ends meet, because I have been on a steady diet of words since the age of 3. So, I can't see anymore. You're going to have to deal with me putting this book to my face. I do have a playlist. Okay. Someone told me it's good luck if you read from each one of your books. And this is from my first book, which is set in Philadelphia, which is a place that still haunts me in a lot of ways. Haunts me in a good way. The city is my muse. Vermont is my home. Rock the body, body. One summer night, I learned the art of breakdancing from a guy I'd only known as Moon in exchange for algebra lessons on Mondays. A member of the Pop-Along Kids, Moon taught me how to flick my wrist and make a wave. Check out the electric boogie, he said, and work like a robot. One hand extended, the fingers curling and uncurling as the arm joints and shoulders in one fluid motion followed each other like butterflies. I half watched, trying to mimic the simple placement of feet, but mainly I thought of all the girls that would soon form a circle as I created illusions with my body. This is from a letter to Brooks. O Orpheus, grant the skills to stir the dead, like Kanye mixing music with fire, spitting souls through wires. Let me chauffeur the true and living through muck and mire. Rescue the underground so they aim higher. Grant the gift to chisel words like De Beers. Let words dangle, verbal gems for their ears. I put a premium on rhymes. How could I not, living the times of the super MCs, where styles are deaf and lyrics fly, tight the way our minds move over beats and grooves. Our brain matters amp, mic check, so we non-stop. My spirit feels echoes thanks to hip-hop. I thought to send this note to Tupac, then wondered if he's there with you. Rumor has it he's far from dead, that in fact he lives like Asada in Cuba, having fled death row. His mask consumes us still. A rapper shot, a martyr is born. Sad not the man, but the image we mourn. A cafeteria was all one needed, a beatbox firm as the heart. We begin a flow, spitting rhymes that superseded our teacher's verdict. Dim-witted children who'll never taste Marchand de Vin. So rap's dawning was the earth's reality, to give a sound to a collective necessity, couched in that we of the real, always keeping it. Those hallway leanings, that attitudinal grace, that much future you heard, that sugar on the hill, ganging up airwaves, those public enemy freedom phrases, those boogie downs and Big Daddy Kane's, those diggable planets and Afro names, that Rakim and Mr. Eric B., disposable heroes of hypocrisy, that Salt and Pepper and Roxanne, West Coast Coolio and Fisted X-Clans, those questing tribes spitting concertos of the desperados, but the boom baps done gone jiggy. Every other word is ho or niggy, nicka, still all the same. One frame of the nation spells hunger and like a straw to the brain, video poison normalizes that game. So our children learn to point guns. Thus we need life like the Fugees needed Lauren. That's called old school hip hop. Even when I wrote it, it was by that time. Let's go to Vermont, since we're here. If you drive down 22, I can talk to this audience. When I'm in Florida a couple weeks from now, it'll be a different story. But when you drive down 22A, you hit a corner. There's no lights on 22A. Did you know that? They're flashing, but there's no lights. But there are general stores. Enchanters of Addison County. We were more than gestural, close listening. The scent of manure riding its waft on the leaves off 22A. By nightfall, our gaze flecked like loon cries, but no one was up for turnips, nor other roots, not least of which the clergy. Romanticism has its detractors, which is why we lined the road with tea-lit luminaries and fresh-cut lemons. We called it making magic, then stormed the corners and porches of general stores, kissing whenever cars idled at four-way stop signs, or sought grade A maple syrup in tin containers with painted scenes of horse-drawn farmers plowing through snow. The silhouetted, rusted farm equipment gave us the laid-back heaven we so often wished, and fireflies bequeathed earth stars, such blink and blank and bunk-a-bunk-bunk. And of course we wondered if we existed, and also too the cows in the ancient pastures and the white milk inside our heads like church spires and ice cream cones. Even after all that cha-cha-cha, we still came out of swimming holes, shivering our hearts out. Ode to Mount Philo. After avocado-colored inclines, after dawdling ascents over fern and foliage, after long trillium gazes and careful steppings over outcrops of rocks, which, if not careful, could trip to foil, after delicate trail talk of marriages and births, dates remembered and quarrels squashed, the tentative pace of the new-in-law, the sure-footedness of the long-ago love, after stop-offs to catch breath, a swig and quaff, to take this much in midway up journey, this resting place to further peaks and crests, after foothold and climb, after storm's last sculpture of fallen trees, you, summit of my life, philosophy of sky, you, embezzler of breath. From big and small mouths, so that all whisper your spread-out tabernacle, a new religion, you ritual burst of mountain light and sparkling lake, for which we line up, taking our turns and spawns of clicks and screens, panorama of foothills like green coats thrown open, clouds, if only we could reach and cup into our hands, and below a stitched patchwork of land, lime pastured like flattened squares of kale. We look, we marvel at how far we travel through emerald, glitter, and beam. So many of you know, my dear beloved is in Florida, and prior to our courtship, I did not like the state of Florida due to an election. The election of the Chad. Remember the Chad? Remember the Chad? Yeah. And also Disney. But now I'm a fan of Disney. This is called On Cocoa Beach. I am revisiting the idea of Florida, giving my vertebrae a vacation from all the faded bouquets of urine in New York, and the darkened policies of snow in Vermont. I'm revisiting the idea of my wife's imperial gaze. Her 3-cheese quiche and fluted mimosas are the masters of my mornings. I'm revisiting the idea of lawn furniture. By late afternoon on Sunday, my face blossoms like a passion of lilies as I admire the spectral grace of the sandhill crane, or am caught lost thinking of Castillo de San Marcos or the first people Temecula. I'm revisiting the idea of light and laughter and skin half transported by wind. I like to think of myself beside the crepe myrtle, pondering the logos of palm leaves and the kindnesses of beaches. You can have your sororities of pain and darkened subways. I will give myself to the great battles of clouds and surfs. Speaking of, this is called Obad. It also takes place in Florida, somewhat. Actually, it takes place here. Obad, many of the young people here know, who are in my class. It's a morning poem. It's a carpe diem. It's a don't go, stay, hang out, let the world go by. We're here. Okay, this is Obad. You could be home boiling a pot of tea as you sit on your terrace, reading up on last night's soccer shot beneath a scarf of Ceres. You could be diving headlong into the waves of Cocoa Beach, or teaching Mao Zedong, whose theories are easy to reach, or dropping off your dry cleaning, making the new Americans wealthier, or mowing your lawn, greening up. But isn't this healthier? Just imagine the hours you're not squandering away, nor the ant-like minutes frittered with a tentative fiancé. Your whole body agrees. You'd rather lie here like a snail and my arms crook, nude and oblivious to all emails. Yes, it's nearly 1 o'clock, but we have more reasons to kiss, to engage in small talk. For one, these blissful seasons are short, and tomorrow is never insured. So bounce downstairs, pour us glasses of whatever, a tray of crackers, Bosch pears, then let drop your sarong, the wind high on your skin, so we can test all day long the notion of original sin. Okay. Let me check. Are y'all still out here? There you are. Hi. Okay. Going to get a little deep, necessarily so. This is called Ferguson, and it was written on the anniversary of that moment. But this is a prose poem, which in the vein of the more kind of surrealist prose poem. And I asked you to think about after the encounter and to imagine. Ferguson. Once there was a boy who thought it was a noble idea to lie down in the middle of the street and sleep. For 4 hours, no one bothered him, but let him lay on the road as though he were an enchantment. This became newsworthy, and soon helicopters hovered above, hosing his curled torso and thick legs in spotlights televised the world over. Foreign correspondents focused on the neighborhood and its relative poverty as recognized by the plethora of low-hanging jeans worn by shirtless men and loud music issuing from passing cars, which had the effect of drowning out everyone's already bottled up thoughts about the boy sleeping in the middle of the street. Others jumped in front of cameras, seizing an opportunity to be seen by their relatives on the other side of town because they had run out of minutes on prepaid cell phones. The roadkill in the neighborhood, and some on that very block, rodents, cats, and possums, feeling equal amounts of jealousy and futility, each began to rise and return to their den holes, cursing the boy sleeping in the street beneath their breaths for his performance of stillness and tribulation in the city. The drug-addicted homeless, leaning into doorways like art installations, were used to being ignored, but they too felt affronted and began folding their cardboard homes. For the first hour, he practiced not breathing. For 10 seconds, he would hold his breath. And then he practiced longer sets of minutes during the next 3 hours until he was able to stretch out his non-breathing for whole hunks at a time. When his breathing returned, it was so faint, his chest and shoulders barely moved. Infinitesimal amounts of life poured out of him, but no one noticed. The police cordoned off his body, and after some time declared him dead because they had only seen black men lying prone on the streets as corpses, but never as sleeping humans. The whole world, eager and hungry for a Lazarus moment, watched and waited to see when he would awaken and rise to his feet, especially his neighbors, with minutes remaining on their cell phones, who filmed and animatedly discoursed behind yellow tape the ecstasies and muted sorrows of watching a boy sleep in the middle of the street. No one forgets. Today I am describing evil outside Polly's Pancake Parlor near Sugar Hill and Franconia Notch, watching the brown bears thumb their noses at the aerial tramway above Echo Lake. I'm recalling my 6th grade teacher again in the classroom that launched my cafe of brooding, and how I was given a meadow of songs farmed and fertilized in the palm of my hands by wooden rulers taped together in another country, in another century. Each of us must recognize some woman or man from those years when we awkwardly looked in the mirror and tried the latest dance craze, or stared down at our midriff and considered its potential for satisfying the girls or boys with fresh oracles of underarm hair. The body lives a life that is not ours. Some evening, quite soon, my son will return home and say, "I give up." His eyes exhausted from all the bar lights, his fingers stained and brittle as moth wings, all the wet kisses of his life already fading from his spongy lips. We will compare our sorrows in the roadkill we drive over as the car windows darken in the valley of wicked mountains. Let's read a poem that I used to read this poem. It's called OK Cupid. Needs no introduction. I will say, however, the problem with entering an algorithm, and that's what you do, you enter an algorithm, you have to fit a column, and that's what this poem is about. So don't worry if you feel like I'm signifying on you. This poem is not about you. It's about the algorithm, okay? OK Cupid. Dating a Catholic is like dating a tribe. And dating a tribe is like dating a nation. And dating a nation is like dating a football star. And dating a football star is like dating a new car. And dating a new car is like dating an air freshener. And dating an air freshener is like dating a fake tree. And dating a fake tree is like dating silver tinsel. And dating silver tinsel is like dating a holiday. And dating a holiday is like dating a black man. And dating a black man is like dating a top. And dating a top is like dating a bottom. And dating a bottom is like dating a Tibetan. And dating a Tibetan is like dating a dragon. And dating a dragon is like dating a fireplace. And dating a fireplace is like dating a mantle. And dating a mantle is like dating a picture frame. And dating a picture frame is like dating Martin Luther King and Jesus. With Jesus. And dating Martin Luther King and Jesus is like dating a threesome. And dating a threesome is like dating a commune. And dating a commune is like dating an unachievable idea. And dating an idea is like dating the Enlightenment. And dating the Enlightenment is like dating science. And dating science is like dating a beaker. And dating a beaker is like dating a pharmacy. Dating a pharmacy is like dating a dealer. And dating a dealer is like dating a supply chain. And dating a supply chain is like dating a Republican. And dating a Republican is like dating winter. And dating winter is like dating Demeter. And dating Demeter is like dating corn. And dating corn is like dating utopia. And dating corn is like dating pancakes. And dating pancakes is like dating utopia. And dating utopia, I skipped it.
Never leave out the orgasm.
Okay. And dating pancakes is like dating an orgasm. And dating an orgasm is like dating utopia. And dating utopia is like dating an Amish woman. Dating an Amish woman is like dating a Luddite. And dating a Luddite is like dating a folk hero. And dating a folk hero is like dating Robert Zimmerman. And dating Robert Zimmerman is like dating history. And dating history is like dating a white man. And dating a white man is like dating insecurity. And dating insecurity is like dating a Hummer. See what I mean? I gotta stop. You gotta buy the rest. That goes on and on. There is there was a school right at the end of my street called Vaux Junior High, and this is in Philadelphia, and that school had one of the best, despite being in a ghetto, had one of the best school chess teams in the world. And many of the kids were, as you can imagine, did not come from privileged homes, but they knew their way around a chessboard. So much so, Hollywood made a movie about them called The Mighty Pawns. But they knew themselves as the bad bishops. And me and my dad was talking. I grew up playing chess with my dad, and he remembers playing one of the kids from the bad bishops. I do too. There was a kid on my block who was an exceptional player. Mighty Pawns. If I told you Earl, the toughest kid on my block in North Philadelphia, bow-legged and ominous, could beat any man or woman in 10 moves playing white, or that he traveled to Yugoslavia to frustrate the bearded masters at the Belgrade Chess Association, you'd think I was given to hyperbole. And if at dinner time I took you into the faint light of his Section 8 home, reeking of onions, liver, and gravy, his 6 little brothers fighting on a broken love seat for room in front of a cracked flat screen, one whose diaper sags, it's a wonder it hasn't fallen to his ankles, the walls behind doors exposing sheetrock, the perfect O of a handle, and the slats of stairs missing, where baby boy gets stuck trying to ascend to a dominion foreign to you and me, with its loud timbales and drums blasting down from the closed room of his cousin, whose mother stands on a corner on the other side of town all times of day and night, except when her relief check arrives at the beginning of the month. You'd get a better picture of Earl's ferocity after school, on the board, in Mr. Sherman's class, but not necessarily when he stands near you at a downtown bus stop in a jacket a size too small, hunching his shoulders around his ears, and you, as you imagine the checkered squares of his poverty and anger, and pray he does not turn his precise gaze too long in your direction, for fear he blames you and proceeds to take your queen. And I'm going to round out with a few poems set in various locales. This book continues a series of poems that I started writing back in graduate school many years ago, and it's called Urban Renewal, which we know is the official name of the policies, domestic policies from the Nixon administration. But I wanted to kind of reframe and rethink about what it is that renews us. And at that time, particularly those of us who are from cities, and I clearly landed on art, and as I have grown older, now I believe it's not only art, but also a sense of beauty and travel and general goodness, love, general goodness in the world. This is from that series. This is the Augustan Suite, and is dedicated to Derek Walcott. The blessed will not care what angle they are regarded from. Italy. W.H. Auden. Italy. Cobble streets have the burnished look of stone skulls, sinking like a necropolis of Ungolinos from centuries of bewildered tourists stumped in the eternal city. Mulling over which way to turn, every ruin begets a selfie, like a Hollywood set directed to life, then ditched with each phone's shutter click. Past the bronze facade of the Colosseum, ominous as a chipped gold tooth, other crowds follow, like apostles, the voice of a guide, yawning and carrying her flag aloft like a cross. Even here, I look for a history of myself. In the Musei Vaticani, I zoom close to art's record, frescoes, sculptures, altarpieces, and war with pilgrims for the best shot, studying the prose of a guidebook to explain Ezekiel's amphora, the slave boy delivering clothes to a nude Pollux, or why every Christ child craves the adoration of a black magus, shades frozen in a single hole. The crumbling stone beneath our feet speaks to us, Even Rome's dust possesses something of human grandeur, the elegance of decay. I envy the triumph that certain paintings give back my face, but Romanos Pontifex almost sealed my fate. I have more hills to climb. From every gift shop, Papa waves at his blessed lambs. This section takes place in the Dadaab refugee camp run by the UN, and it's in northeast Kenya. The Dadaab suite. The UN Somali driver speeds by a small herd of white cattle prodded along by a desert farmer. Rust-colored dust in its wake clouds barbed wire suburbs of white tents and makeshift shelters of twigs and branches breeding the plateau faster than malarial flies. I have come to Dadaab like an actor on a press release, unprepared for the drained faces of famine-fleeing refugees. My craft's glamour dimmed by hundreds of infant graves, children whose lolling heads' final drop landed on their mothers' backs like soft stones. What beauty can I spell in this swelter of dust? Ridged like that farmer's goats, the ribs of others protrude and make a mockery of my pen. Where is my empathy? The drought is in my heart as well as on their skins. Yesterday, I walked the Masai Mara and saw how nature bears out its designs. Hyenas drew near for the attack. Seconds later, the sound of crushing bones racked my ears. A battalion of lions gorged on a half-eaten gazelle. Two nonchalant giraffes glided by like war profiteers. While driving in southern Spain, the signs started to change, and I couldn't make out some of the script. And I spent a lot of money on my iPhone because I used Google Maps to make sure I could get around. But I'm not going to read that section. I just wanted to say that. I just looked down, saw that poem. I was like, oh yeah. Well, I'll read just two more poems. This is called On Disappearing. On disappearing. I have not disappeared. The boulevard is full of my steps. The sky is full of my thinking. An archbishop prays for my soul, even though we only met once, and even then he was busy waving at a congregation. The ticking clocks in Vermont sway back and forth, as though sweeping up my eyes and my tattoos and my metaphors, and what comes up are the great paragraphs of dust, which also carry most of my existence. I have not disappeared. My wife quivers inside a kiss. My pulse was given to her many times in many countries. The chunks of bread we dip in olive oil is communion with our ancestors, who also have not disappeared. Their delicate songs I wear on my eyelids. Their smiles have given me freedom, which is a crater I keep falling in. When I bite into the two halves of an orange whose cross-section resembles my lungs, a delta of juices bursts down my skin and like magic makes me appear to those who think I've disappeared. It's too bad war makes people disappear like chess pieces and that prisons turn prisoners into movie endings. When I fade into the mountains on a forest trail, I still have not disappeared, even though its green facade turns my arms and legs into branches of oak. It is then I belong to a southerly wind, which by now you have mistaken as me nodding back and forth like a Hasid in prayer, or mother who has just lost her son to gunfire in Detroit. I have not disappeared. In my children, I see my bulging face pressing further into the mysteries. In a library in Tucson, on a plain above Buenos Aires, on a field where nearby burns a controlled fire, I am held by a professor, a general, and a photographer. One burns a finely wrapped cigar, then sniffs the scented pages of my books, scouring for the bitter smell of control. I hold him in my mind like a chalice. I have not disappeared. I swish the amber hue of lager on my tongue and ponder the drilling rigs in the Gulf of Alaska and all the oil-painted plovers. When we talk about limits, we disappear. In Jasper, Texas, you can disappear on a strip of gravel. I am a life in sacred language. Termites toil over a grave, and my mind is a ravine of yesterdays. At a glance from across the room, I wear September on my face, which is eternal and does not disappear, even if you close your eyes once and for all, simultaneously, like two coffins. Thank you for your presence tonight. This is my last poem, and it's called Reverse Voyage. My midway journey, my emancipated eyes, like runaways exposed and the row home stacked again, colorless drab Lego blocks, I come back to unlit alleys, avenues and sheaves of grit, and utility wires like veins stitched to power supplies buzzing above a different kind of hum. Just when my scene was rectifying into something faultless, extraordinary as a cat's refuge beneath the parked car, I'm brought back to the silence, oblique, hidden deep inside the ventricle cave of my body's chambers, to nail salons, check cashing stores, pawn shops. How characteristic of them to greet me, though, the old folk in such a way, magisterial. The corner store with its faded graffiti lines, finally whitewashed, nearly expunged, doubtless like its author, save for his palimpsest, and yet behind a first-floor window, a young boy bends over an old encyclopedia, a remarkable script, a genuine compendium that shows his people's Africa like a sculpted mask in an open market which he slowly turns, contemplating skin, the color of almonds, pyramids, revolutions, other such beauties. Human strength never before seen kept those mystical relations alive, revived songs, albeit injured, but no less rich. Even here, all's remixed. In Fairmount Park, a posse plays the same din, with fresher strains of freedom, what never passes. That is the message, always, of his august lines, a rangy dignity. The lesson, too, of what one refuses never to forget about this place. A grandmother, Mrs. Pearl, a domestic, 30 years boarding scepter, early mornings. I think of her clutching a tan purse, statelier than these lines. So oblivion vacates memory, these connecting columns of bricks and wires, and me, its last deportee, which the blood sings, no matter snow caps, no matter mountainous ranges and glittering lakes like flashing daggers, no matter allegory of hoarfrost, no matter tractor parades and morning finches and blue jays that skitter my sight in a valley far away from city pigeons who hop and settle off electric wires near street gutters to peck heads at one crumb or another, where local inhabitants too study skies with the certainty affixed to rooftops and flashing underbelly green and red lights going elsewhere or nowhere. The city skyscraper's tower, a retired bricklayer and his wife, the old folk, locked in a grid of streets, and they're still standing 3-story on a strip of mostly weed-laden lots, like a tore-up mouth, where their minds recall for 60 years just to where to lay a hand on a railing, and then the stairs that not long ago led up to you or me. The white marble steps and boarded-up doorways and basement windows spilling out debris and rusted springs say, return to us. You've become all there is to become. The mocking, blissful smile of an addict whose half here nods off on a stoop in a miniskirt, understanding too well the perpetual voyage, then suddenly jolts up to greet cars sparkling like sin, slowing to a stop, while her daughter upstairs puts both hands under her chin, amused for years, watching a flickering stream of endless images. And always I call a taxi or pack my rental and inaudibly say no, recalling afternoons my eyes rarely veered from a book even while walking. One day, from middle school, when a boy lunged a fist in my stomach like a question mark, I was already awake, a surfeit of ambition struck to roam like decomposing clouds roaming deep, reforming constantly and away above toughened streets, above sunlit ruins and scattering mounds. My eyes went elsewhere or nowhere, open and determined. Thank you.